Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Monday, September 29th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. Expect a high of 82.5 degrees in Riverside today, with a low dipping to 63.4 degrees, so it's shaping up to be a pleasant fall day ideal for outdoor plans. Coming up, we'll break down the latest developments Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has shared regarding a potential ceasefire in Gaza, examine the potential fallout from President Trump's proposed housing policies that could uproot millions of American families, and touch on other key stories making headlines around the world. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning, everyone. As we start the day, top international news from the Middle East, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is heading to the White House today for a crucial meeting with President Donald Trump. With me now is our foreign affairs reporter Ethan to break down this developing story on potential progress in the Gaza ceasefire talks. Ethan, what can you tell us about Netanyahu's latest announcement?
Grace, it's a significant moment indeed, especially as this meeting kicks off later this afternoon. According to reporting from PBS NewsHour, drawing on Associated Press dispatches, Netanyahu revealed yesterday during an interview on Fox News Sunday that Israel is working closely with the Trump administration on a new ceasefire proposal for the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. He said, quote, and end quote, "We're working on it. It's not been finalized yet, but we're working with President Trump's team, and I hope we can make it a go." This comes right on the eve of their talks, amid nearly 2 years of conflict that began with Hamas' brutal attack on October 7, 2023, killing about 1,200 people in Israel and taking over 250 hostages.
That's a grim reminder of how this all started, Ethan. And Netanyahu emphasized finishing the job against Hamas, right? But what's this concession he floated?
Exactly, Grace. In that same Fox interview, as detailed by PBS NewsHour correspondents like Sami Magdi in Cairo and Giovanna Dell'Orto in Jerusalem, Netanyahu reiterated Israel's commitment to dismantling Hamas, the militant group behind the October 7 assault. Yet he suggested allowing Hamas operatives to leave Gaza if they end the war and release all remaining hostages. As of now, 48 hostages are still held, with Israeli officials estimating about 20 are alive. It's a bit of a carrot-and-stick approach, pun intended, dangling an exit ramp for peace while vowing to uproot the threat.
Interesting. Now this ties into Trump's so-called 21-point plan. Can you explain what we know about that framework?
Sure, for those unfamiliar, the 21-point plan is Trump's proposed blueprint for ending the fighting, first discussed with Arab leaders on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly earlier this week. According to 3 anonymous Arab officials cited in reports from the Los Angeles Times and Spectrum News, both republishing AP content updated yesterday afternoon, key elements include an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages by Hamas within 48 hours of Israel accepting the deal publicly, and a phased withdrawal of Israeli defense forces from Gaza. It also calls for an international stabilization force, banning Hamas from any future governance, which means dismantling their tunnels and offensive setup, and transitioning to Palestinian Authority-led rule with reforms and security checks, plus assurances no Gazans are forced to leave, and starting talks for peaceful coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians. Some outlets like Al Jazeera even mention former British Prime Minister Tony Blair as a possible head for a transitional authority. Trump sounded optimistic in pre-meeting remarks, saying he got very good responses from Israeli and Arab leaders.
And Hamas's take on this? Have they responded formally?
Not yet officially, Grace. A Hamas official told the Associated Press, as covered in yesterday's reports across PBS NewsHour, the Los Angeles Times, and Spectrum News, that they're open to studying any proposals positively and responsibly. But they've been informally briefed via Egyptian and Qatari mediators, without a full offer. Hamas has long offered to release all hostages for a complete war end and full Israeli pullout, conditions Netanyahu rejects outright. Talks stalled after an Israeli airstrike on September 9, 2025, hit Hamas political headquarters in Doha's Lek Taifiya district, Qatar. Israel called it a precise strike on leaders like Khalil al-Hayya and Khaled Mashal, who survived, killing 5 lower members, 3 bodyguards, and a Qatari officer. Qatar condemned it as cowardly state terrorism, per their Q&A agency, and it strained mediation efforts, drawing UN Security Council flack and even criticism from Trump himself for not advancing peace.
That Doha incident sounds like it poured cold water on diplomacy. How does the humanitarian situation factor in today?
It's fueling the urgency, Grace. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry, whose figures the United Nations and experts find reliable, despite not splitting civilians from militants, reported yesterday a Palestinian death toll of 66,005, with women and children about half, and 168,162 wounded. That's up to 66,055 killed by this morning, per Al Jazeera updates, with at least 50 more deaths in the last day from Israeli attacks. Israel's offensive has displaced 90% of Gaza's 2.3 million people, razed huge areas, and sparked famine warnings in Gaza City from UN experts, as noted in PBS NewsHour and the Los Angeles Times. Recent strikes hit 140 targets, including homes in Nuseirat camp killing at least 10, and demolitions near Shifa Hospital. Violence even spilled to the West Bank, where a 20-year-old Israeli soldier died from wounds near Nablus yesterday, and forces killed the Palestinian assailant.
With global pressure mounting on Netanyahu, from UN walkouts to EU sanction talks, and US polls showing many think Israel has gone too far, per AP/NORC data in those outlets. How does today's meeting fit into Trump's broader support for Israel since his January inauguration?
Trump, back in office after his 2024 win over Kamala Harris, remains a staunch ally but showed impatience post-Doha. This is Netanyahu's 4th White House visit, including lunch and a 1:15 p.m. Eastern press conference. Post-meeting, Netanyahu told the Jerusalem Post details are still being sorted, while offering Hamas exits and delaying West Bank annexation to calm his coalition. Hamas denies new proposals but wants protections for Palestinian rights, and families urge Trump to push Netanyahu. Egypt and Qatar welcome U.S. help but stress timelines. It's a fragile window, Grace, with protests worldwide and experts labeling actions as potential genocide.
A lot hanging on today's talks, Ethan. Thanks for that thorough rundown on this critical story, the first of 2 well covered this morning. Good morning, everyone. As our second story this morning, we're diving into a critical investigation from ProPublica that could shake up housing aid for millions across the country, with California feeling the pinch hardest. Joining me to break this down is our housing policy reporter, Chloe. Chloe, what exactly did ProPublica uncover in their report today?
Thanks, Grace. ProPublica, that powerhouse nonprofit known for its award-winning digs into government watchdogs, dropped a stunner titled, end quote, "Millions could lose housing aid under Trump plan," end quote. They got their hands on exclusive drafts of unpublished federal rules from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, showing massive overhauls to programs like Section 8 vouchers. These are rental subsidies that help low-income families avoid the streets, serving about 5 million households right now. The changes could boot up to 4 million people from aid nationwide, and experts say it's like pulling the rug out from under folks already on thin ice.
4 million, that's a staggering number. Break down these draft rules for us, Chloe. What are the big shifts they're proposing?
Absolutely, Grace. There are 2 main unpublished drafts shaking things up for public housing: housing choice vouchers, project-based vouchers, and project-based rental assistance. First up, full-time work requirements. Local housing authorities and landlords could demand non-elderly, non-disabled adults clock 40 hours a week to keep their spot. ProPublica, through reporter Jesse Coburn, notes even 2-parent families where both work might get sidelined if hours or pay don't cut it. A HUD insider told them anonymously these are optional for agencies, but Will Fisher from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities warns that in cash-strapped spots, they'll roll out fast. Remember past welfare trials. They tanked aid for working families without sparking more jobs, just mountains of paperwork.
Work requirements sound tough, especially in a gig economy. But there's more, right? Tell us about the time limits.
Spot on, Grace. It's not just sweat equity. There's a ticking clock, too. The drafts slap a 2-year cap on subsidized housing for many, after which you're out unless you're elderly or disabled. This hits all 4 programs, forcing even steady families to pack up and hunt anew. ProPublica points out it revives a 2019 Trump idea ditched by Biden in 2021, which HUD's own math said would evict over 25,000 immigrant families and 55,000 kids. Catherine O'Regan, a New York University professor and ex-HUD official who eyed the drafts for them, crunched numbers shared with the Associated Press and figures this alone could yank subsidies from 1.4 million households, mostly working parents with children.
And the immigration angle, how does that play in particularly for states like California?
This one's a real divider, Grace. The drafts would nix aid for whole mixed-status families if even one member lacks legal status, ditching the current proration where only eligible folks get help. HUD's internal analysis, snagged by ProPublica, pegs this at 20,000 families now on aid, including 16,000 with kids under 18. These households scrape by below the federal poverty line of $32,000 for a family of 4. California takes the biggest hit, as it has the lion's share, per the report, alongside Texas and New York. Families might keep aid by splitting up, but HUD expects most, especially with children, won't risk it, leading to instant housing chaos. Mixed status makes up less than 1% of units, but in pricey California, they're key to the workforce, yet scared by deportation vibes.
California is already wrestling with a homelessness crisis. How bad could this make it there?
It's pouring gas on a bonfire, Grace. HUD's 2024 count, fresh in their 2025 updates, shows over 180,000 unhoused nightly in the state. California grabs 25% of national housing funds, but lacks 1.2 million affordable units, says the California Housing Partnership. The Los Angeles Times reacted today, quoting advocates who fear the mixed status rule could displace tens of thousands in LA County alone, where 40% of public housing is immigrant-led. KFF Health News heard from San Francisco and Oakland officials that work rules would swamp services as many juggle spotty gig jobs. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition warned today of federal cuts in the Trump FY 2026 budget, slashing HUD by 43% overall. Experts like Fisher, O'Regan, and Deborah Thrope from the National Housing Law Project tally up to 4 million at risk, with 3.3 million from work and time rules per CBPP's September analysis, plus those 20,000 families. The Urban Institute backed up the 1.4 million eviction risk in an August report, hitting California hard with years-long voucher waits.
Ties to bigger agendas. Is this linked to things like Project 2025?
You bet, Grace. ProPublica connects it to the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, that 2023 conservative playbook pushing to gut HUD's bureaucracy and enforce self-sufficiency via welfare curbs. HUD Secretary Scott Turner has cheered work requirements publicly, calling aid a short-term hand-up in an op-ed quoted by ProPublica. Still, these drafts are internal, under Office of Management and Budget Review since late July per reginfo.gov, with no public comment yet. PBS NewsHour noted tonight that a similar 2019 rule got 30,000 mostly negative comments and stalled.
Any official pushback?
Muted so far, Grace. A HUD spokesperson told WGBH News today they skip comment on speculative leaks, and the White House sticks to budget talk. But a March memo with Homeland Security inked by Turner and Secretary Kristi Noem pushes reporting immigrant status or lose funds. NPR covered May and June plans for 2-year caps on able-bodied adults.
Wow, Chloe, this is a housing headache that could turn into a full-blown eviction epidemic. Thanks for unpacking all this with such detail.
My pleasure, Grace.
Here are some other headlines. Moldova's political compass points due west as the pro-European Union Party of Action and Solidarity chalks up a decisive win. With nearly all votes tallied, PAS, founded by President Maia Sandu, pulls in about 50% of ballots, on track for roughly 55 of 101 parliamentary seats. The result sidelines the pro-Russian patriotic electoral bloc at about 24%, handing Sandu a solo runway to form a government, push reforms, and taxi toward a 2030 EU integration goal. Framed as a high-stakes geopolitical choice, the outcome is a setback for Moscow's sway amid allegations of Russian meddling. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen cheered, "You made your choice clear. Europe, democracy. Freedom." In New York, the mayoral race takes a plot twist worthy of Broadway. Mayor Eric Adams exits stage left, abandoning his re-election bid just weeks before Election Day. Citing constant media speculation and the city's campaign finance board withholding millions in matching funds, Adams says he can't credibly continue. His turbulent year included a federal corruption probe that was later dropped. The curtain now rises on a three-way showdown: Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani, Independent Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa. No endorsement from Adams, and though he's bowing out, his name stays on the November ballot. No refund on the printing presses. A diplomatic duet in Beijing turns up the volume on a familiar refrain: North Korea and China pledging to harmonize efforts against hegemonism and unilateralism. After talks, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said Beijing would deepen coordination with Pyongyang on regional and global affairs, while North Korea's Cho Sun-hui conveyed Kim Jong-un's unwavering drive to tighten ties. It's Cho's second Beijing visit in a month, following a rare early September summit where Kim and China's Xi Jinping appeared alongside Russia's Vladimir Putin at a military parade, an axis of pageantry that underscores shifting power cords in Northeast Asia and complicates the security score for Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo. In Vietnam, Typhoon Booloi blew in with more than bluster, bringing winds up to 133 kilometers per hour, deadly floods, and heartbreak at sea. At least 12 people are dead, and 17 fishermen are missing after landfall on the north-central coast, lashing Ha Tinh and Nghệ An provinces. Authorities evacuated some 30,000 residents from high-risk zones and shut 4 central airports, including Da Nang, grounding hundreds of flights. Power outages hit hundreds of thousands, homes were damaged, and the risk of floods and landslides remains elevated as the storm, weaker but still worrisome, tracks toward Laos. Before Vietnam, Booloi claimed at least 20 lives in the Philippines, a grim storm ledger across the region. And in a green leap, Suriname sets the conservation bar sky high, pledging permanent protection for 90% of its rainforests, triple the 30 by 30 global target. Announced during Climate Week in New York, the move would safeguard over 15 million hectares in a nation that already absorbs more CO2 than it emits. Plans include updating conservation laws by year's end and potentially recognizing indigenous and maroon ancestral lands. Advocates applaud the canopy of ambition, but warn the pledge must be rooted in robust enforcement and international support to stem illegal mining and logging. In the battle for the Amazon, Suriname aims to be a cut above without cutting it down. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.